From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robert Dysart. I'm the Deputy Librarian of Congress. I work here at the library, and I am very happy that you're all here this afternoon. You're in a very special part of the Library of Congress. All of these books that are surrounding you now were once the books of Thomas Jefferson, who was our third president and someone who loved books and reading. These books were part of the original collections of the Library of Congress when the Congress was first starting. There's about 6,000 books here, and they were brought to the library 199 years ago. The library today has about 24 million books, but we also have many other things in the library. We have maps, photographs, we have films, we have recordings. So today we have about 160 million items. So the Library of Congress is Congress's library. The members of Congress who work across the street in the Capitol building use this library every day. We are also the library for the United States. So we're the nation's library. So that means just like your school library, the library in your neighborhood, this is your library too. And we have a special place here for young readers like yourself that you can come in and look at some of our books that you'd be interested in. So I encourage you to come back sometime to the Library of Congress and use some of these collections. So we hope this is just one of many visits you're making to a library this summer. And I hope you're having a good summer of reading. So again, welcome. And it's now my turn and my pleasure to introduce two of our students, Alessandra Aramine and Luke Hill, who are going to make an important introduction right now. Thank you. Good, thanks.
Mi nombre es Alessandra y yo estudio en Dominion Trail Elementary y yo voy a presentar Secretary and the Friends from Duncan.
Well, good morning. You guys doing okay? And we got some great friends today. We always have fantastic readers. And this gentleman here, Dr. Lushniak, is like the doctor for the whole country. How many of you have ever been to the doctor? So he's like the doctor on top of all the doctors. And so if you have anything you're worried about or any questions for him later, please ask, and he does a fantastic job. Next to him is Pati Jinich. You wave, say hello. Pati is an amazing chef. She has a TV show. And who likes to eat Mexican food? Raise your hand. Pati knows a thing or two about that. She is very, very good. And how many of you like sports? Raise your hand. How many of you like football? Raise your hand. This gentleman right here, Mr. Warren Moon, is in the Hall of Fame. Have you ever met someone in the Hall of Fame before? I've never met a Hall of Fame football player before. This is my first time. I haven't. And so he had an amazing career. It was pretty interesting for those of you that follow sports. When he tried to go to the NFL after college, nobody drafted him. So he had to do it the hard way. And for him to go from being undrafted to the Hall of Fame, how many people have done that? Do you have any idea?
None.
You.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing story. So anyway, we've got some fantastic readers, and when we're done, you can ask us any questions about the book. But if you want to ask what it's like to be a doctor, or what it's like to be a chef, or be on TV, or what it's like to be one of the best football players ever played, please ask any of these guys any hard questions, okay? Give me the easy ones. So we're going to read all these books that Thomas Jefferson owned. It's just actually pretty amazing being in a room like this. And this book is called Thomas Jefferson Builds a Library. So we're going to take turns reading. And if you guys could sort of hold up so the kids can see the pictures, that'd be great. We'll go right down the line. Thomas Jefferson learned to read, and then he never stopped. He sat and he read. He walked and he read. And lying in bed, instead of sleeping, he read. Books, books, books. Books and geographies, poems, prayers, and plays. Tom gobbled books the way a starving man eats. Before he turned 6, who's 6 years old here? Any 6-year-olds? So he was your age, a little bit before that. Before he turned 6, people said he had read every book in his father's library. At school, Tom learned to read Latin. He learned to read French. He learned his manners, tripping through the minuet and bowing to the ladies, blushing until his freckles disappeared. Tom rode a horse, and he hiked, and he sang, and he played the fiddle, but he loved reading best. While at college, he read 15 hours a day. That's pretty amazing. I've never heard of that. Guess what he started collecting? What do you think he collected? Books. That's a great guess. Books. Histories and contracts, medicine, music, and math. Tom brought books on when to plant, where to build, and how to think. Books with paintings and some with maps. Tom got married and he read. He built a house and he read. And Tom made sure that his children read as well. He spent weeks organizing books. Huge folios on the bottom shelves, palm size on the top. Books of red and blue and green or brown covered, stacked floor all the way to the ceiling. Tom's library wasn't in alphabetical order like others. He grouped his books by the subject, what they were about. First in 9 broad categories and later in 3 classifications. Tom spent hours deciding exactly where each of his books belonged. Tom belonged in that library at Monticello. He never wanted to leave his wife, Martha, his children, his farm, or his books. But when the colonists wanted their freedom from England, the people of Virginia needed someone smart to represent them. And guess who they picked? Who do you think they picked?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. Good.
The next section talks about the rest of the life of Thomas Jefferson. It starts this way. At the Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Tom used all he knew, from all the books he'd read, to write the Declaration of Independence. Who remembers the 4th of July and fireworks?
Pretty fun.
That was really important for that. These words started a new country. What's the name of that country? The United States of America, our country. Now, many famous folks knew Thomas Jefferson, that tall redhead standing off in the corner reading. Along with his family and schoolmates, Tom included books as his best friends. Books made him laugh, they made him wonder. His new country needed strong friends in Europe. By fighting for independence, the young United States made many enemies in England. Someone must ask the King of France for help with trade and loans. Would Mr. Jefferson consider moving to Paris? What do you think? Did he go? Yes, because he was serving his country. Tom packed his memories and traveled across the ocean for the first time.
Now I'm going to read the next part. Who speaks or reads Spanish? I'm going to read it in English, and then I'm going to say it in Spanish, and you guys are going to realize just how much more Spanish you know than you think you know. He sailed and he read. He bounced in fancy carriages, and he read. Viajó, navegó. Viajó en carrocería muy especial y leyó. He bowed to the king, charmed the court, helped his country, and he read. Se agachó ante el rey, charmó a la corte, ayudó a su país y leyó. Guess what Tom saw in Paris? ¿Qué vio en París? The cathedrals, the courts, the queen, and of course, las catedrales, las cortes, la reina. When he wasn't busy with kings and courtiers, Tom shopped for new books from Paris, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Madrid, and London. And to say all those countries in Spanish, I just have to put a little accent. Paris, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Madrid, London. in languages he knew: English, Latin, Greek, Italian, French, Spanish, Anglo-Saxon. How do you guys say Spanish in Spanish? Español. And languages he wished to know: German, Dutch, Bengali, Arabic, and Welsh. Booksellers love to see Thomas Jefferson. How do you say Thomas Jefferson in Spanish? Tomás Jefferson. He bought books from those he liked and those he didn't in shops of street markets for pennies or pounds. A few cost more than a working man made in a lifetime. Tom bought 2,000 books in 5 years. 2,000 libros en 5 años. More than a book a day. Más de un libro al día. 10 years after he came home, the people elected Thomas Jefferson the 3rd President of the United States, el tercer presidente de los Estados Unidos. At that time, the U.S. Congress owned a small reference library of books on law and government. President Jefferson supported this Library of Congress, appointed the first librarian, and suggested books to buy. While president, Tom doubled the size of the country and more than tripled the numbers of books in its library. Cuando fue presidente, dobló el tamaño del país y casi triplicó el número de los libros en esta biblioteca.
I think I'm going to bring it home. He wrote at least 19,000 letters, many about books. He told people what to read and when: science before noon, history until supper, stories from dark till bedtime. He listed books to read and sent boxes of books as presents. He lent books to James Madison, sold books to James Monroe, and when no one else wanted Ben Franklin's books, Tom bought them. So Tom loved some books. In 1814, England and the United States were at war again. British soldiers invaded Washington and set fire to the Capitol. Tom heard the terrible news. They'd burned the Library of Congress. 3,000 precious books were gone forever. After 50 years of collecting, Tom owned more books than just about anyone else in America. He couldn't let his country go without a library. Guess what Tom did? What do you think he did?
He made another library.
There you go. Yes, he did. He sorted and he read. He labeled and he read. He wrapped and he read. And he sent his books to Washington, D.C. Sent all of his collection of books to Washington so Washington would have a library. Tom's collection of over 6,500 books started a new Library of Congress more than twice the size of the one lost in the fire. Besides government, politics, and law, Tom's books added a universe of curious subjects. Books on when to fight, where to fish, and how to fly. Microscopes and menus, games and ghosts, revolution and remembering. Tom's collection never stopped growing. 200 years later, the Library of Congress owns more than 155 million items on over 800 miles of shelves in 470 languages. It adds around 11,500 new items each day: movies, music, drawings, maps, newspapers, magazines, posters, photos, speeches, and books, books, and more books. Over 35 million books, more than any library ever in history. Including this book, the one in your hands, like Thomas Jefferson, you are a reader too. He would really, really like that.
Can we give a round of applause for all of our fantastic readers? Think about it, it's pretty amazing. Some of those books that he bought, some of those books right here in these shelves. It's remarkable to be here. Any questions you guys have about the book, or again about what it's like to be a doctor, or what it's like to be a chef and grow up in Mexico City and be on TV, or what's it like to play in the NFL and be a quarterback? Any questions? Yes, sir.
What is it like to be an NFL? What is it like to be an NFL quarterback?
You know, it was a great dream of mine as a young kid to play in the National Football League and one day get to that point. And it took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of determination. I had to do very well in school in order to play sports, because if I didn't do well in school, my mother wasn't going to let me play sports, because education was the most important thing to her. And it definitely became the most important thing to me. But it was my dream, and through all the hard work that I put through, whether it was through high school or college, and then on into Canada, where I played for a few years before I came to the National Football League, I was finally able to realize my dream. So it was a great accomplishment for me. I'm very proud of what I was able to do, because I was able to accomplish a goal and a dream of mine that established when I was a young kid at 9 years old.
What does it like to be a chef and be on TV?
Now that's cool.
I'll tell you something. Being a chef and being able to cook and see people eat what you're cooking is what gives me the most pleasure. And I think that food is one of the friendliest ways to share amongst people and to enjoy what we all have to bring to the table. Now, being on TV, in the beginning, it wasn't so easy. The first time I was on TV, it was for a local news channel, and they asked me. I used to be a historian before I switched careers, so different than my friend, I wanted to be an academic first, so now I'm really happy with all of these books. But after I had kids, I realized that I love food more than anything else, so I switched careers, so a different path. But the first time I was on TV, I had no training at all, except for cooking and researching. And when they said, Pati, we're gonna turn the cameras on, you have 2 minutes to make this chicken dish. I said, okay. So we started, they turned the lights on, I was frozen for about 10 seconds. And once the host said, go with the chicken, I started and I never stopped. It's a lot of fun.
How many years was it when you were working out to throw the football really far?
You know, I started playing when, like I said, when I was 9 years old, and I just would practice and practice and practice as much as I possibly can, and I just got better at it. Each time I went out and worked hard at throwing the football, and I played Pop Warner football, which was Little League football. Then I went into high school and played, and I just continued to keep working, and I went into college and played, and then finally got to the pros. So I played a total of 23 years of professional football, and I played a total of 33 years of football in total in my life. So football is a big, big part of my life.
Right here. Sneak in there.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah.
What is it like to be a doctor?
You know, why do I like to be a doctor? You know, a doctor is a great thing to be. And I'll explain why. Part of it is you really are there to help people. You have to be a good student, right? You have to be able to love to read. Who here likes to read? Right? We know we all like to read. You have to be able to study hard, because you have to learn everything about the body, everything that the body does. But then in the end, once you become a doctor, the real joy is being able to help people. Who here has ever been sick, right? And when you're sick, you go to mom, you go to dad, they're there to help you. And sometimes they make you better without a doctor. But sometimes you gotta go to that doctor. And the doctor, who's here afraid of doctors? Is anybody here afraid of doctors?
A little bit.
You really shouldn't be.
Dennis?
You really shouldn't be. But the beauty of being in that position is you're there to help people. When they're not feeling well, right, you're there to make them feel better. Now in this position, I'm called the Surgeon General of the United States. And guess who my patients are? It's everybody. It's the whole nation.
All of us.
And what I like about this job right now is that We give people information about how to stay healthy. And we'll be talking a little bit later about how to stay healthy, but one of the things I have to tell you is part of it is nutritious eating, right? Is eating well. So that's what the chefs do, is they provide things for us. They provide for us ideas of how to eat well. And then we have people like this. What's important for the body too is physical activity. It's sports, it's exercise, is to keep your weight down. So all three of these people are represented. This man, right, he's the education guy. So you gotta be able to keep your mind motivated, your mind moving. You have to read, you have to learn, you have to eat well, and you have to be physically active. And the last thing I'll say about being the Surgeon General, what's the Surgeon General really against? Smoking, right? You do not smoke, right? Cigarettes, bad. Yesterday, we also came out with some news. And the other thing I have to tell you, because this is brand new news, is you have to be careful of the sun. You don't want sunburns. You don't want suntans. You have to make sure, because there's problems that can happen with your skin. So that's why I like being a doctor, is that I'm able to put on this fancy uniform. I'm able to tell people, here's the right things to do to make for a healthier person, a healthier kid, but also a healthier America, a healthier nation.
What age did you decide to be a doctor?
I decided to be a doctor when I was probably around 12 years old. When I said, you know, I like the sciences, and I like thinking about helping people, so I think I'm going to do that. Even after that, though, I'll tell you what I really wanted to be. I wanted to be an astronaut.
We've had some astronauts read with us in the past. That's been pretty fun, too. Any other questions, guys? Yes, sir.
Were you nervous when you started playing sports?
That's a good question.
I was a little nervous when I started playing sports because when you start playing in front of a lot of people, you always want to do well, especially when your family is there watching you play. You want to do as well as you possibly can, and you've got a lot of people that rely on you, especially playing the position I played, quarterback, because everybody's looking at the quarterback to make sure he's going to make the right decisions, make sure he's going to make the right plays and that. So I would get a little nervous before every game, and once the game started, then all that went away. But there's no question about it. Whenever you do anything that's important, you know, whether it's taking a test in school or whatever it might be, you're going to get a little bit of nerves, you're going to get a little bit of butterflies. But if you're prepared, and if you've studied or if you've worked hard and practiced, then you should be okay as far as, you know, how you play.
Yes, sweetie. Can you repeat the question?
Does everybody watch me while I'm playing the game? I certainly hope so.
I used to watch him. I thought he was fantastic.
I'm sure there are some people that are up at the concession stands buying a Coke or popcorn or peanuts, but that's what makes it so exciting. That you know you have millions of people watching you on television, you have thousands of people watching in the stands, and that's what makes it so exciting, that you're playing something that you love, that you've played since you were a young kid, and you get a chance to entertain people every weekend and kind of take their mind away from things that might be going on in their lives and give them some entertainment. So it was a great thing to be able to participate in sports for so long. And I encourage all of you to make sure you continue to keep getting exercise every day and keep going outside and playing and not being so caught up in the video games and all the other things that you do inside. Make sure you have a balance of being able to go outside and run around and get your exercise. You can still play your video games and that, but make sure you're getting your exercise every day so you stay very healthy.
Let's get one in the back, and then you get the last question here. Yes, sweetie, can you stand up and say your question? Oh, cutie.
Were you scared when you be the chef?
What was the question?
Were you scared to be the chef?
I'll tell you something interesting. I find everything interesting. Because I was a historian before I switched careers, see, I love researching and knowing the story of things, and I love to eat too, and to share food. So it is so important to be able to know how to read and to research. So I wanted to share not only how to make a chicken taco. Who likes chicken tacos? But I was also hungry to learn, when was the first taco ever made? When did the first taco get to the US? How can we make tacos more nutritious? Will they give us energy? So it's all this information about that one delicious taco, which makes it great about being a chef and having really good content to share. So no matter if you want to be a doctor or a football player or a cook, you have to know your information so that you can share. So I'll give you another example. Who likes avocados? I love avocados. Okay, not only did I want to share a good recipe for a guacamole, you know that guacamole is the thing that is mostly eaten in the Super Bowl, right? At the Super Bowl. But, avocados have been eaten for centuries and centuries and centuries in Mexico. And they are, okay, I have a trick question. Is an avocado a vegetable? Raise your hand. Is avocado a fruit? So avocado is a savory fruit, and it has the fat you want and the fat you need. So I wanted to research, where do avocados come from? How many different kinds are there? So that's the fascinating thing about being a chef, that you can learn the history and the basis of the ingredients, how to use them, and then make the people's lives fun when they're cooking.
She have a question? Yeah, last question. You stand up.
How old were you when you started being a doctor?
How old was I? So I thought about, the question was, how old was I when I started being a doctor? So I really started wanting to be a doctor when I was 12. And then you have to go to a lot of school. So then I went through 4 years of high school, right? And then 4 years of college, and then 4 years of medical school, and then 3 years of residency to become something called a family physician. So I was like 27, 28 by the time I was a real doctor. So it takes a long time, but was it worth it? Yes, it was worth it, because I'm happy in what I'm doing. And that's very important for you kids, is always when you think about what you want to be, right? A football player, a chef, an education secretary, a surgeon general, when you think about what you want to be, make sure it makes you happy. Really important.
All right, guys, fantastic questions. Please give one more round of applause for all of our readers.
Well, I love books. My name is John Cole, and that's why I became a librarian, and that's why I've worked at the Library of Congress for many, many years, and I too love my job, and I also love giving books away. And I'm wondering if Alessandra and Luke could come up for just a minute. Today, we have for each of you, and in fact for all the kids who were here, copies of the book that our readers have read. You remember whose library we're in the middle of? What's his name again? And do you know that lots of these books, as the secretary said, came from his library? They're many, couple of hundred years old. And this library has been recreated now since the bicentennial of the Library of Congress. And we are still trying to get many of the books that were destroyed by a fire many years ago. And now we are only 8 or 9 books short. We have just about completed the restoration. So we hope that today that you will keep a memory of this library with you. And I would like to announce to everybody that you all get copies of this book to help remember today, and you will be able to get them when we go downstairs for more activities and exercise, which is part of our day. The library, in the library. Well, you'll get them in the Library of Congress downstairs or outside in the mezzanine. So thank you again for visiting the Library of Congress today.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.